Forged by the Apocalypse. Chapter 7. The Dungeon Fairy. I didn't move back into the desert again until the next morning. It wasn't a conscious choice to wait so long. That was just how long it took for my ankle to heal. The passing of time was completely secondary to me during my recovery. All of my focus on slowly and perfectly rebuilding the pathways I had ruined in my panicked escape. My eyes only opened once the repair was complete. Using the draconic crystals, I restored the magic circuits in my leg as well as I could based on my memory. The first hint that I'd been stationary for a long time was the difference in sunlight. I struggled to work out how long I had been sitting there until I saw the dew on the ground suggesting it was a new day. I had worked through the night, it seemed. The rumbling in my stomach and dryness in my throat were another signal that more time had passed than I thought. Surviving on the strangely well-cooked food from defeated enemies wasn't going to work in the long term. It was barely working in the short term. I grimaced at the prospect of returning to Clive's, but steeled myself quickly. Survival came over mental well-being. Even as I made the choice, I sensed the changes in myself from just a day ago. I was more glib about the idea of the dead than anything. Was it the newly bound aspect of the dragon changing my mentality? The 50 attribute points in the mental stat? Simple shock? Whether it was the semi-permanent scarring of trauma or a more intrinsic change brought on by the mystical transformation I was undergoing, I couldn't look down on any positive. Keeping my head straight, aiming myself at the ideals I still hadn't finished absorbing into my psyche, that was all I could hope for over the coming days. I used the yo-staff as a walking stick, though my ankle was as good as new. My new skill promised mastery of its use, and even in this casual instance it proved true. Slight alterations in my grip, angles of leverage, and even the specific landing spot for the base of the staff all slipped into an incredibly natural perfection. Along with the grace granted to me by my raised attributes, the difference between myself now and a day before became even more strident. I opened my new system page and sighed with contentment. Aspects. Fortitude, none. Speed, none. Mental, dragon, 1 of 4. Will, none. The feeling of my own potential was intimidating and exciting at the same time. I knew I had barely scratched the surface of my dormant power, yet I doubted any human alive pre-system would be able to put up a fight against me. It looked like I could use 3 more guidance stone on just the dragon aspect alone. Just how powerful could I become with 4 aspects? A flicker of the dragon's roar rumbled through my soul as I aligned further with it. God, this is addictive. As Clive's came into view, I saw the crater I had made in the battle with the turtle. It was quite noticeably empty. I waited in the tree line. From this distance, I could see no groove that had been tilled into the soft ground. It didn't seem like the failed assassin amphibian had been dragged somewhere. Something else was going on. I activated my mana, cycling power in preparation for danger. The effect of the aspect on the flow within was shocking. While binding had not increased the depth of my mana pool, it had massively improved its efficacy. The stimuli from my enhanced perception was overwhelming in its beauty. I almost forgot where I was in my excitement, but a snapped twig drew me back to the situation at hand. A half-second later, I was in full sprint. Another rustle had given me the direction of the runner, and they were heading away from me. I hesitated because, up to now, everything had tried to kill me on sight. Whatever was escaping from me was no mindless animal. The distance between us was further than I could see, but once I started crashing through the brush, my quarry gave up discretion too. Whatever it was escaping with the pace of an old-world athlete. Unfortunately for them, even Olympians would be unable to compete with my speed. Using the yo-staff to maneuver through the forest turned obstacles into opportunity, and within moments, the gap between myself and the mysterious sounds closed to nothing. It wasn't until I was right on top of the noise that I accepted my eyes weren't playing tricks on me. I watched as two bushes were pushed apart and then came back together, the leaves and dirt on the ground getting disturbed. Clearly, something had run through the foliage, but my eyes had been watching the source of the sounds the whole time. "Are you invisible?" I asked, keeping a short distance from the sound. A noise of distress and increased desperation to get away from me was the only reply. Without a doubt, something was here, running away from me. It was also definitely invisible. "I promise not to hurt you if you don't hurt me." A second later, everything went dark. With mana coursing through me, even my own movements were more clearly highlighted. I could do nothing to stop my face from crumpling as all my momentum stopped at once. I bounced backwards and landed hard on my back. I opened my eyes and screamed, but it wasn't enough to dodge the incoming yo staff. The heavy stick landed right on the bridge of my just broken nose, and I howled in pain, stamping a foot onto the floor from my lying position. I swiped the staff to the side, ready to defend myself when I stopped in confusion. To my right, a few meters off, someone was doing everything they could to hide their laughter. I turned my eyes to the sound, blinking away the tears, but saw nothing. "It's your fault," a distinctly Irish accented voice chuckled at me. "You promised, then you go and nearly step on me. You can't be breaking your promises that quickly, human." What the... Ugh. Speaking was out of the question at the moment. It seemed like I wasn't in immediate danger, or maybe so much danger that it didn't matter how careful I was. Either way, I could afford to calm my manner and try to repair my nose. The process wasn't nearly as lengthy as my ankle the night before, but even I could tell that it was just a sloppy use of powerful magic. My guest, whoever or whatever they were, seemed pretty content to watch this process. Actually, they didn't just watch. "That is vile. I think a dragon would kill you if they saw this." I didn't have any retort to that critique. I thought the same thing, actually, I admitted in the vague direction of the voice. I couldn't help but shiver a little as I spoke to what might as well be a ghost. I did, however, recognize an opportunity to finally get some answers. "I'm sorry for my rudeness. I'd bow if I weren't already on the ground." Another giggle, this time at my joke rather than at my expense. "I have to say, that's quite a lowly look for a human, I'll give you that. You going to get up any time soon?" Even though I could see nothing but the clear sky above me, the voice was coming from directly in front of my face. An almost silent buzzing whistled a high-pitched whine in the air. Wings. "Thinking about it," I answered, weighing up my options. I was tempted to reach out, but my politeness was not accidental. I had an inkling of what I might be dealing with here, and while I didn't trust the system not to make any strange, jarring changes, it was time to start using my head where I could. "What would you suggest?" I asked. "Oh, and what are you?" "Questions from thee, expecting answers from me. For free, without fee." The voice became charged with power, and I felt the air become still. Nature no longer held sway over the space. The feminine voice barked a laugh, and the pressure disappeared. "Nea's me name, and it's the best you'll get for now. You don't go trying to guess the rest, or I'll have your knackers in a pouch before you can get the word out. Names are too important to share with just anyone." "Oh, right," I asked. "I've heard that before. Like the actual Fae." Promises and the importance of names? This was stuff I had studied in my spare time. Gaelic mythology. "Ah, what would you know, human?" the invisible fairy snorted. "Can you even turn your eyes on properly? And you think you know me? Not bloody likely." Despite the derision in the words, the tone didn't match. They were clearly amused. Honesty was always the best policy with the Fae, I remembered. I have literally no clue what's going on beyond what I can see in front of my face. Right now, that's clouds and trees. "Like I said, The voice was now a few feet to my left. You hadn't even turned your eyes on yet. Right, yeah, what does that mean? I was already sending mana of different compositions and strengths to my eyes, but clearly that wasn't the answer. Neither my plain mana nor the new draconic crystals changed my vision beyond sharpening it. Am I just being dumb? Oh, so many questions. In complaint, I saw the ground get disturbed. Had the fairy flopped on the floor? You did make quite a big promise, though, so I suppose you deserve some real answers. I felt two small hands touch my eyebrows. I tried not to flinch, but I didn't manage it. Don't send it to the eyes themselves, but here instead. Don't use the dragon's mana. I did as I was instructed, sending mana to the two spots the fairy had highlighted. Apparently, being specific was important, as I noticed a previously unseen pair of reservoirs in my eyes. There were whole mana wells sitting just above them, which I had been completely unaware of. I couldn't help but feel embarrassed as I sent mana to the empty spot, and they began to fill. The process was quick, only costing a fraction of my total mana. The effect was immediate, and I was rewarded with a system prompt. Skill unlocked. Mana sight. There are many layers to the world. Now there is one less veil. The sharpness I had experienced with my crude use of mana up till now felt like a joke. The world around me danced with colours I had no name for. Vibrations shimmered through the air, and of course, the mysterious voice now had a face to go with it. I suppressed a deep shudder. Fair folk. I forced a smile to my face as I tried to casually inch away from the insectoid woman. Large, multifaceted eyes were far too close to mine now that she wasn't invisible. Long, dragonfly wings buzzed quickly and quietly behind her, and her limbs were long and spindly. Sharp, wiry black hairs dotted some of her scalp. She wasn't grotesque exactly, but it was a shocking sight all the same. After a moment of calming myself, I was able to speak. You've done me a great service. Thank you very much. I bowed my head and closed my eyes. I kept my head bowed and my eyes closed until I heard her move slightly away. Ready for round 2 of looking at her, I opened my eyes and looked at the fairy. Not quite Tinkerbell. Naya looked like a small, emaciated woman. Her skin was a pale, shiny blue. Her large bug eyes were dark, though an amber tint could be seen where the light hit them. Just above a thin forehead, dark black hair offset her skin and sat above her wings in a frizz. She wore a small, flimsy-looking blue dress, which hugged her from her neck to her knees, a gap in the back for the wings. Didn't think humans were such grovellers. Now you can see properly. You can check yourself what I am. She was right, of course. Filling the small pools above my eyes had sequestered a tiny portion of my mana out of reach. I could deactivate the skill and get it back, but it was so tiny it didn't matter. The benefits were clear, and I doubted I would ever recall that energy if I didn't have to. I turned my attention to the little alien woman properly. Naya, Dungeon Fairy, level 8. Like with other creatures, I didn't get any more information than a name. The system very clearly didn't call her a monster, though, which was probably why we were talking and not fighting. Well, Naya, it's genuinely lovely to meet you. It's weird to say that seeing a fairy has made me feel less crazy, but here we are. Crazy few days. My name is Grant. A lifelong promise and a portion of your true name. You either don't know the rules or you really must fancy me. The fairy spun around in the air and wiggled her tiny rear at me. I held back a wince and shrugged. I didn't know the rules, clearly. On her second revolution, Naya stopped, and a look of realization came over her face. Hold me, Wings, you're strong. That explains the dragon in you. It was you what killed the tortoise. Huh. I guess they are tortoises, aren't they? Why do we call them turtles? Who's we? Naya asked. People who grew up in the 90s and 80s mostly, I guess. Don't worry about it. The system is getting to me, I think. Yeah, it tried to kill me, so I put it down. I heard myself hedging words, defending myself before I had even been attacked. Sure sign of guilt there, Grant. I hardened my voice and stuck out my jaw. What about it? Instead of becoming scared of me like I was worried, Naya's huge eyes lit up. She rubbed her tiny hands together and paced back and forth in the air while licking her lips. The result was undeniably sinister. She quickly stopped her pacing and then slowly turned to face me full on before speaking. You and I, she said ominously, are going to get on great. I hope you enjoyed Chapter 7. I hope you enjoyed the introduction to Naya, and I hope that my accent wasn't too terrible. I suppose we'll find out on the likes at the end of this video. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the next chapter.